Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan and we're back with another Total War Warhammer video, but today is going to be a little bit different. You see, normally I do these list videos focusing around what the community wants by going through the forums, Reddit, and social media in general, but I never really give my opinion on the characters that I want to see. So with this video, I want to go over 5 characters I want to see in Total War Warhammer 3, whether it be the form of DLC, FLC, or anything else, and I want to tell you exactly why these characters are total badasses. So let's not waste any more time and jump right in. We're going to start off with my favorite Imperial character. This is Marius Lightdorf, the Elector Count of Averland. Now a lot of people might be saying, why Marius? He's just a Imperial character, he's a very basic swordsman character, he's got no magic, he's got nothing, but he's actually really cool. Commonly known as the Mad Count of Averland, Marius could be described as having multiple personality disorder or just some really strange bouts of manic depression. Now with hearing that, a lot of you might be thinking, well, what makes him different to, say for example, Luther Harkin, who's also kinda insane, and yes, I get that, he's very similar in the sense of that, but Marius shines because Marius is an accomplished fighter. An excellent duelist and a skilled tactician, Marius commands a lot of respect on the battlefield, despite his very strange nature, with even the Emperor Karl Franz counting Marius as one of his most trusted allies and perhaps closest friends. Marius is someone who deeply cares for the territories he controls and wants the Empire to prosper as a whole, fighting alongside his troops, which unfortunately eventually led to his downfall at the Battle of Blackfire Pass, but many remember him as a heroic fighter. Marius has always been an interesting character, even on the tabletop where he had rules which kinda affected his state of mind, but the reason why he's so cool is mostly because, well, he's absolutely petty, going as far as naming his horse Daisy Kurt von Hellboring II because he really dislikes Kurt Hellborg. Even going on record as describing Hellborg as having a poor mustache, worse dental hygiene, and a sense of humor to rival a troll. And you know what? A character that petty is just absolutely awesome. We should all aspire to be Marius Lightdorf. Plus, let's be honest, it's a really cool miniature. Like, it's one of the best looking miniatures that was ever released during the lifespan of Warhammer Fantasy, and I'm a big fan of Averland. I've always loved the color scheme. It would be nice if we eventually saw this character eventually as a FLC more than likely, because there's no units really attached to it, unless Games Workshop ever released that supplement for Blackfire Pass, which featured Marius quite heavily, but yeah, you never know. Next is Prince Apophis. This is a rather interesting Tomb King character. You see, long ago, he was a prince of Numas, and like many other Nehekarans back in the day, he wished for control. Jealousy is a major issue throughout the living of Nehekara, well, also the dead too, but he decided to, well, slaughter every single person in that royal bloodline. Eventually none were left and he proclaimed himself king. Now this is something that we've seen happen before with, say, for example, Nagash, but the difference is that the people didn't want the young prince to rule and they decided to rebel against him, eventually trialing him for regicide, which is one of the most heinous crimes of all of Nehekara. He was denied mummification and was instead left to the carrion of the desert, where he was devoured extremely quickly, and due to that, he was not allowed into what would be considered the Nehekaran afterlife. Instead, he was sent down to the underworld, with his soul being claimed by Osirian, the god of the Nehekaran underworld, to be tortured for eternity. However, the young prince was quite smart, and being able to bargain with the god of undeath, where until he would find a soul as perfect to match his own, he would claim souls in the name of the god Osirian. The god of undeath had him reborn as the cursed Scarab Lord, where his body is not a reanimated corpse, but a desert revenant whose body is formed from a writhing swarm of scarabs. You get a lot of Mummy Returns type of influence here. Only his actual skull remains as a part of his own natural body, with the blade in his hand being the exact same blade that he used to murder his own family. It is said that the now immortal prince scours the world hunting down souls, binding them to mystical soul cages before returning them to the depths of the underworld, and here he places them on scales and compares them to his very own cursed spirit. The thing is, the young prince didn't realize that the god of the underworld tricked him. The scales will never tip in his favor, and he is forced to serve the Nehekaran god of undeath until the end of time. This is such a cool character. I was blown away when I first saw his miniature. I thought, wow, this is so different to a normal Tomb King or Tomb Prince. And it's something that I've been wanting for a while. I don't know if he'd be doable as a legendary lord, because, well, you know, he kind of acts on his own, but he'd be a fantastic legendary hero, and I really think that legendary heroes need to make a triumphant return, having a new system brought with them and so on. This is something that will be a topic in a later video. But, I mean, look at the model. It's just so cool. Next is Moonclaw, the son of Morsleep. Now, this is a character that is relatively young, as far as we know, of course, because the timeline has always been a bit weird, but he was born on Geheimnisnacht. This is essentially, the best way to explain it, Warhammer Halloween, where everything gets a little strange, demons start appearing more, and strange creatures appear, such as Moonclaw himself. Now, he's counted as a Beastman character, but we don't know exactly what he is, as he's actually born from the moon itself. You see, a comet had been circling the skies, and eventually slammed its way into a sacred grove at the base of the barren hills. Everything in that area was essentially destroyed by a wave of pure chaotic energy. The meteor itself was an egg-shaped lump of purest warpstone, and from there, Moonclaw was born, a creature which many have described from a distance, of course, as being very similar to that of a beastman, but as they get closer before their inevitable demise, they see that he is something more, something greater. Many people hypothesize that this could be a sort of warp beast, a creature born from pure chaotic energy, meaning that he is not really living, but not really a demon either. The creature known as Moonclaw lives for nothing other than causing destruction, seeing the world as something that needs to be tainted by chaos fully, and it's because of that he has amassed a rather large army of beastmen to his side, those being his only followers, mostly because even Chaos Warriors might find this creature too strange to be around, as it is very erratic and you never know what it's going to do. He is extremely powerful as he is volatile, and many say that he can channel the very power of Morsleep through his own being, calling down warpstone comets to crush the enemy from afar. It's a very interesting character. Unfortunately, he never really had an official miniature. It's only art that exists of him, and it's a very big shame. But I've always been curious. Why do we not have more on this? Could there be more? Could we see this as a potential strange DLC character for the Beastmen and maybe have his lore fleshed out a little bit more? Could this be the time that Games Workshop and Creative Assembly flesh out a character which has always been a massive debate throughout the fan base, through loads of different Warhammer tabletop forums to just pretty much anywhere else? When the Beastmen are mentioned, Moonclaw is usually mentioned too. Next is Conrad von Karstein. Now, I know a lot of what you guys are thinking right now. There's too many von Karsteins, but this one's really special, and in my opinion should have been the one that came before, you know, Helm and Ghost. But let's just talk about him. This character is completely insane, and I don't mean just average vampire levels of insane, I mean totally batshit insane. Even before he was turned into a vampire by Vlad von Karstein, this character, as a mortal, was already lacking in, say, morals and just general thought, with many describing him as just a plain old lunatic. So the character was more enhanced in strength, not mentality. Commonly referred to as the Mad Dog of Sylvania, Conrad used to act as a sort of enforcer for Vlad. He is in by no way, shape or form a good magician, having a very weak hold on the winds of magic itself, but he is, well, a walking razor blade, essentially going out to destroy whole towns, hamlets, cities, necromancers, even other vampires. He is just indiscriminately killing. In battle, he loses all self-restraint and he revels in bloodshed, and he was a pretty talented swordsman, with many, even other vampires, claiming that he had no rival. When Vlad was killed, he took over Sylvania for a time, even taking a bit more trust, well, more bribing necromancers to join his fray, as he knew he needed powerful spellcasters to hold his control over the Deadlands. Eventually he was killed, as obviously he was too much of a threat, and he was causing havoc throughout not only the Empire, but also the World's Edge Mountains. But the character has always had such a big spotlight, especially during the Vampire Wars. He's just a really, really cool character, and if they can bring back characters that are already dead, like say for example Vlad and Isabella, it would be great to see Conrad at some point. I'm imagining that due to the fact that there's so many legendary lords in Sylvania, he will not be a legendary lord, but he would be a really cool legendary hero. I've always loved Conrad. He looks like a blood dragon, and many people thought he was, but he's actually a von Carstein, and he's just absolutely insane, and I think that it would be cool again to have some more legendary heroes in the fray. And lastly we have, well, I think a lot of you guys expected this, the Demon Prince Azzel, champion of Slaanesh, and all about one of my favorite characters in the history of Warhammer Fantasy. So his lore has changed over the years due to retcons, but what we do know is that he was alive during the time of Sigmar, so a very, very long time ago, right before the founding of the Empire itself, growing up as a member of the Umberogan tribe and being a friend to Sigmar Heldenhammer himself. However, due to the death of his brother and potentially jealousy with the fact that his sister was going to marry Sigmar, well, yeah, it's very easy to fall to temptation, isn't it? Striking at Sigmar and wounding him close to death, also killing his sister before escaping the lands of what would be the Empire to the lands of the Norsi, embracing the culture of the chaotic worshippers and eventually slaying a champion of Khorne, drawing the eyes of Slaanesh herself to his attentions. For the remainder of his mortal life, Azzel would be a devoted champion of Slaanesh, eventually being blessed with that of Demon Princehood and becoming one of the most powerful assets that Slaanesh has to his and her disposal. Azzel is quick and a champion fighter, but what he really excels at is using his influence to break the will of even the most pious of men. This is a small excerpt from the Warhammer Fantasy 5th edition army book, Champions of Chaos. At the Battle of the Moors, a force of zealous Templars of Ulrich made vows before the flame of Ulrich in Middenheim that they would banish Azzel or perish trying. But before the battle had ended, the Templars had been reduced to gibbering imbeciles, slaves to the slightest whim of Azzel. He set collars around their necks and made them walk on all fours like dogs to amuse his patron Slaanesh. The questing knight, Guido de Brion, sought out Azzel, intending to challenge him to single combat to fulfill his Grail quest, but instead he kneeled before the Demon Prince, begging him to accept his undying devotion. Laughing, Azzel severed the head of the Bretonnian knight who stood unmoving, convinced in the justification of the act. Woe to those who face Azzel, the right hand of Slaanesh. This is such a cool character. I remember reading through the books that he's been in. So he was in the Liber Chaotica for a small bit. He was in Heldenhammer and obviously in the 5th edition of Champions of Chaos. He's always been a character which I really, really liked. His model really needs an update. And let's be honest, it would be great if Games Workshop kind of updated it, because that means that he could be playable in, say, Warhammer the Old World, Age of Sigmar, 40k. He could be multi-purpose, and he would be a great character. Obviously, we have to look to the fact that out of all the demon factions, Slaanesh probably has the least choices, and this is a character that I've been dying for. I mention him constantly because it's one of my favorite legitimate characters. Who knows, hopefully in the future in the form of DLC, even FLC, just one day, please. Right, so that's the end of this video. I know some people were thinking, well, where's Nagash? Where's Valkyria? Where's this? Where's that? Keep in mind that we're likely to see those characters anyway, and this video was pretty much just focused around stuff that I want to see, because I figured I never really give my full opinions, and these are characters that I've been wanting for a while, and it would just be nice to just do this for once. I do think that we're going to get all the others. Nagash, Karanak, Valkyria, Festus, they're all potential DLC. They're all stuff that featured in 8th edition lore and all that. And they have a lot of DLC potential, but the characters that I spoke about, I don't think they have too much. It really much depends. Hopefully Creative Assembly think differently. But let me know what you guys think and what characters you're waiting for in the comments below, and let's start a bit of a discussion.